Well, it's good to be with you tonight. Let us get into God's word together. Let's get into God's word together. Let's agree in prayer. Well, Father, in the name of the Lord Jesus, we do lend our spirits to the Spirit of the living God within us, that out through the vessel of our being, you pour forth your wisdom with mighty clarity. Father, we do thank you for we have wisdom and revelation in the knowledge of that Spirit that you've so richly given to us in redemption. Father, we believe and we receive that the burden of ignorance is dematerialized to your glory, and everybody says, Amen. Okay, then I go forward tonight as we continue on our studies. Right, we are looking at concerning the fulfillment of prophecies. If you are somebody that you've find yourself in Pentecostal circles, in church, in an environment where we give opportunity for the utterance of a Spirit of God, and things have been spoken unto you, and then sometimes people scratch their heads and wonder what is going on. Right now, I've heard a prophecy. What is next? What is going on? Now, that's why we're taking this series. So I want to encourage you then to listen and listen very carefully. Now, come with me to Luke and chapter 1. Yeah, Luke and chapter 1. We are looking at concerning the fulfillment of prophecy. Okay, that's the series. So, Luke and chapter 1. Let's give it a go tonight. Luke and chapter 1. Now, I am going to read is the story of Zechariah, the birth of John, right? Of John the Baptist. Now, I'm going to start from verse 10, well, for brevity, so that I don't get to read for too long before we get into the things for tonight. So, Luke chapter 1, verse 10, it says, and the whole multitude of the people were praying without, that means outside, at the time of incense. Is that not interesting? So it was the time of incense, and then everybody was praying. That's quite interesting. In other words, there is a link between the incense and the prayer. Of course, that's not what we're even studying now, but you will discover that the incense really is a symbol of the prayer. So, because it's the prayer of the saints that is the incense. Anyway, so it says the people were praying outside at the time of incense. Now, let's read on. It says, and there appeared unto him, that means unto Zechariah, right? There appeared unto him, that means there appeared unto Zechariah. Well, sorry, I have to start from a little bit earlier so that it is clear to us who we're talking about. So come with me to verse 5. There was in the days of Herod, the king of Judea, a certain priest named Zacharias, of the course of Abia, and his wife was of the daughters of Aaron, and her name was Elizabeth. So that means these two people are from the tribe of Levi. Yeah, because the wife is a daughter of Aaron. That means our forefather is Aaron. So our brothers are priests. Our husband is also a priest. So they are both Levites. So that's what we see from Luke and chapter 1 and verse 5. So they are both of a tribe then of Levi, where all the priests and Levites come from. The man is a priest, right? Is a priest of God. Is named Zechariah, okay? And his wife is Elizabeth. Yeah, so his wife is Elizabeth. So they are priests, and then there are some things about them. He says in verse 7, and they had no child. Look at verse 6. They were both righteous before God, right? Walking in all the commandments and ordinances of the Lord, blameless, and they had no child. So we see here in Luke and chapter 1, verse 7, they were righteous, but they had no child. Okay? So they had no child. Listen very carefully. So somebody says, well, because I live right, then everything is going to go easy for me. That's not the way things tend to pan out. So things can go right, things might not go right, but in this case, they had no child. Apparently, they wanted a child. And we are told that they were righteous. They were righteous. Look at verse 6. They were both righteous. So in Luke and chapter 1 and verse 6, it says they were both righteous. So although they were both righteous, they still had no child. So now, so that's the background. So now let's quickly pace ourselves back to verse 10. Look at verse 10 again. So in verse 10 where we were, it says, and the whole multitude of the people were praying without, that means outside, at the time of incense. And there appeared unto him, that means there appeared unto Zechariah, an angel of the Lord, standing on the right side of the altar of incense. Okay, so he's standing on the right side of the altar of incense. Now, if you know the architecture of Moses' temple, the altar of incense is not in the outer court, right? The altar of incense is inner. Now, anyway, they were standing on the right side of he was standing on the right side of the altar of incense. Okay, now in verse 12, and when Zechariah saw him, he was troubled, and fear fell upon him. Verse 13, but the angel said unto him, fear not, Zechariah, for your prayer is heard. So we see that Zechariah was still a man who was believing God. So it says Zechariah's prayer, okay, is heard. Okay, so in other words, the angel, right, came to Zechariah, okay, on the legality, okay, of his prayers. So the angel did not just appear out of nowhere. He says, your prayer is heard, and thy wife Elizabeth shall bear thee a son. Listen very carefully. So, in other words, this is the angel of the Lord. He has come with a prophecy. Really, he has come with a word of wisdom. Okay, he has come with a word of wisdom. So it is concerning Zechariah and Elizabeth, their baby for the future. So it's a word of wisdom. It says the prayer is heard. Now, what does it say again? It says, Elizabeth shall bear thee. I want you to listen very carefully. Elizabeth shall thy wife. Okay, verse 13. Thy wife. So it says thy wife, right? Listen very carefully. So there's a relationship then between Zechariah and this woman. It says thy wife. Okay, Elizabeth shall bear thee a son, and thou shalt call his name John. Okay, so I want you to see how many things were in that prophecy. Number one is that your wife will bear a son. Number two, you shall call his name John. That is Luke and chapter 1 and verse 13. Yeah, that is Luke 1:13. I want you to see that. Luke chapter 1 and verse 13. We are examining something quite interesting as we read this. So Elizabeth, a specific person, will bear thee a son. Thou shalt call his name John. Don't forget that. Let's skip now all the way down to verse 20. It says, and behold, thou shalt be dumb and not able to speak until the day that these things shall be performed. Listen carefully. It says until the day. So it's conditional. It says it's until the day, right, that these things, okay, these things be performed. So if they're going to be performed, then it's not going to happen automatically until these things are performed. So there is going to be a performer. So there will be performers. That's the thing to take note of. It's not automatic, okay? So it is not automatic. It does not bring itself to pass. It is to be performed. So that's Luke 11:20. It says until until these things, I'm back verse 20, Luke 1:20, until these things shall be performed, because thou believest not my words, which shall be fulfilled in their season. This is where we're going. It says, my words which shall be fulfilled in their season. So now look at that expression in Luke chapter 1 and verse 20. It says, words which shall be fulfilled in their season. Now, so the thing is, right, does that mean, okay, does that statement mean that the prophecy, okay, is deterministic? So does that mean that, look, Zechariah, whether you like it or you don't like it, is going to happen? So is the angel saying, okay, that, oh, your choice, right, your powers of making choice is suspended? Are you following now? So is the angel saying that, oh, your choice is suspended? Okay. Is it saying that, oh, whether you like it or you don't like it is going to happen? Yeah. So is it saying, whatever you do, okay, or irrespective of what you do? Follow me closely. So he's saying, irrespective, right, of what you do, right, this thing is sorted. Okay, this will happen. So is it deterministic? Is it something that Zechariah has no say? We'll look at what the angel said one more time. It says in verse 20, it says, because, Luke 1:20, because you believe not my words, which shall be fulfilled in their season. Shall be fulfilled in their season. Now, so what are we? Let's now read verse 23. And it came to pass that as soon as the days of his ministration were accomplished. So that means, what does that mean? It means that Zechariah continued his ministry. Yeah. So Zechariah continued his ministry, right, in the temple. You understand? So he did not say that, oh, because of this prophecy, yeah, because of this prophecy, I abandon my spiritual service. Yeah. So he did not abandon, right, his service. I want to say that, I mean, that is actually to his credit. So one more time, Zechariah did not say, well, the reason why I've been serving God all these days is because I've been waiting for the day that I've been told that my wife will have a child. Now that I've been told my wife will have a child, that's it. I have received my reward. Everybody, I'm bye-bye. That's not what he did. He continued his ministry in the temple, right? He did not he did not say, oh, because of this prophecy, I am abandoning my service. No. He didn't do that, which is commendable, right? So he didn't abandon his service. Rather, we are told in verse 23, it came to pass as soon as the days of his ministrations were accomplished, right? Then what did he do? He departed to his own house. Yeah, he departed to his own house. So he went about life, right, normally, the way any human being should go about life. I want you to listen very carefully. Now, so he went about life normally. Look at verse 24. And after those days, listen very carefully. So it says, after those days. Yeah, listen. It says, after those days. Yeah, something here I want you to follow very, very closely. Right? It says, after those days. Yeah, after those days. Well, watch again. After those days, again, watch. It says, after those days. Somebody says, well, just go on. Okay. I hear. So after those days, what did he do? It says in verse 24, his wife Elizabeth conceived. Listen carefully. So after those days, we're going to come back to that expression. His wife Elizabeth conceived and hid herself 5 months. So after those days, she conceived. Now, now we have the story. The man received the prophecy through direct words that are given by an angel. Now, so number one, what it means then is that angels can deliver right? Prophecy. Angels can deliver prophecy, just like people can deliver prophecy. You understand? So angels can deliver prophecy, people can deliver prophecy also. In this case, it was an angel that delivered the prophecy. Now, let's go back to verse 20. Luke 1, and pay attention, please. It says, and behold, the angel is talking to Zechariah. Behold, thou shalt be dumb and not able to speak until the day that these things shall be performed. Okay, so the first thing I want you to look at is these things. Okay, these things shall be performed. So a person can read that to be whatever you do, whatever happens, you cannot stop this prophecy. It says, it says these things shall perform. Verse 20, because thou believest not my words, which shall be fulfilled in their season. So the angel again says that the prophecy or his words, okay, so it says the prophecies shall be fulfilled in their season. So somebody says, you see, there is a season for this prophecy to come to pass, and there is nothing that Zechariah can do about it. So, okay, it says it shall be fulfilled in their seasons, right? Now, so let's examine what the text tells us about how it was fulfilled. Okay, so listen, listen very carefully. So we've read now that the angel said, "Oh, it shall be we shall be fulfilled in their season." But how exactly did this fulfillment come to pass according to the text that we read? Okay, again, let's go back to what is the prophecy, because we must know the prophecy. Go back to verse 13. Go back to verse 13. Verse 13 says, and I read, but the angel said unto him, fear not, Zacharias, for your prayer is heard, and thy wife Elizabeth shall bear thee a son. Thou shalt call his name John. Remember, according to Luke 1:13, it says your prayer is heard. Okay, Luke 1:13. So prayer is already heard. Yeah, prayer is heard. So whatever is left now, it is not a case of, oh, now we need to continue to pray so that it can be heard. No, it has been heard already. Yeah. Now, so can you see? So it is not a case of, oh, the time has not yet come. You must just continue to pray so that it will come. No, say your prayer is heard. So you know what? There is now no need. Okay, so there's now no need to pray. Okay, in order, right, for the prayer to be heard. Okay, there's now no more need for that. Yeah, there's no more need to pray in order for the prayer to be heard. That's an important one. It has been told that your prayer is heard. Now, that does not mean don't pray anymore. It just means that the prayer life will adopt different focus. Okay, it will still continue to pray, but there's a different focus. So prayer life will have, right, a different focus. Now let's continue. So how did the fulfillment come, or what was to be fulfilled? Verse 13 again. It says, your prayer is heard, and thy wife Elizabeth shall bear thee a son. Number one. So what is the number one? Your wife Elizabeth shall bear you a son. So that is what will come to pass. So Elizabeth, okay, will bear, right, a son. What's the number two thing? And you shall and thou shalt call his name John. Okay, so you name him John. Two things. So and the angel said, these things in verse 20 shall come to pass in their season. So let's start with thou shalt call his name John. Let's start with that. Yeah. So if you read that expression, right, thou shalt call his name John, let's go to Luke and chapter 1, okay, and verse 59. Luke chapter 1, I'm skipping all the way down now. Luke chapter 1, let's read from verse 57. Luke chapter 1, and from verse 57. Luke 1:57. So here we go. We are told that now Elizabeth's full time came, that she should be delivered, and she brought forth a son. Okay, so now Elizabeth, right, now has a son. Right, she now has a son. But look at verse 59. And it came to pass that on the 8th day they came to circumcise the child, and they called him Zacharias. Look at that one more time. And they called him Zacharias after the name of his father. Yes? Look at this one more time. And they called him Zacharias. Okay, that's verse 59. Let's go back again to verse 13. Yeah, they called his name Zechariah. But what did the angel say? What did the angel say in verse 13? Yeah, let's go back to what the angel said. Right? So, remember, what did the people call him? Zacharias. So, yeah, but go back to verse 13. Verse 13, and I read one more time. Verse 13, let's see the prophecy. It says, your wife Elizabeth shall bear thee a son, and thou shalt call his name John. And in verse 20, look at verse 20. 20 says, my words which shall be fulfilled in their season. So, in other words, if the angel was responsible for what was happening, right, what should the name of a child be? John. What are they calling the boy? Right? So if angel was responsible, right? If angel was responsible or God was responsible. So if it was angel or God, right, that was responsible, what will have happened? The name of the boy will have been John. Can you see? Yeah. So what will have happened is thou shalt call his name John. Right? But what happened here? What we see is in verse 59. Go down to verse 59. What did they call his name? It says here, yeah, and they called his name, 59b, and they called his name Zacharias after the name of his father. Right? So, in other words, the relatives, yeah, so the relatives called the boy after his father. What does that tell us? It means that men were still able to make choices. Can you see? So men made choices, okay, on this matter. Men made choices. So what does that tell us? That the ability of men to act different, right, to what was prophesied, okay? So what was prophesied was not suspended. Are you following now? So when that angel, right? So when that angel says, oh, in Luke 120, yeah, Luke 120, when it says these things shall be performed, that angel was not saying, well, there is nothing any man can do about it anymore now. No. Right? So when it says these things shall be performed, my words, right? So it was not suspending, right, human ability of choices. It wasn't. So the human ability of choices was intact. Men can still act different. Yes, men can still act different. So the angel was clear. Call his name John. The people were clear. We call his name Zacharias. Now let's read on. In verse 50, verse 60. And his mother answered and said, not so, he shall be called John. Listen very carefully. So we're now in Luke and chapter 1 and verse 60. Okay, the mother, right? The mother insisted, okay, that, oh, well, you shall call his name John. Now think about this carefully. What that means she made a choice. So that means Elizabeth, okay, made a choice, okay, that was different to her relatives or his relatives. Okay, so she made a choice that was different, right, to that of their relatives. Please follow closely. So that means their relatives had a choice. Elizabeth chose different from the relatives that are present. Right? So what did she choose? She chose, it said, call his name John. Now, why do you suppose she chose that? It's because Elizabeth and her husband have talked. That's because Elizabeth and Zechariah, okay, have discussed. Okay, they were united. Now, let's go on. I'm in verse 60. And his mother answered and said, not so, he shall be called John. Yeah. Look at verse 61. And they said unto her, there is none of your kindred that is called by this name. Now, look at verse 62. And they made signs to his father, how he would have him called. How he will have him called. Luke chapter 1, okay, verse 62. So they wanted Zechariah to make a choice. Okay, so Zechariah was to make a choice. So the mother had made a choice, but the people did not value the words of the boy's mom. Yes, so custom, okay, custom was overruling her. Can you see? So she was in agreement with God, agreement with the angel, but custom overruled her. That's the custom overruled her. And they then says, okay, Zechariah, you have got to make a choice. So look at verse 63. And he asked for a writing table and wrote, saying, his name is John. And they marveled. Right? Look at that very carefully. So he wrote, right, and said, okay, his name is John. That is Luke chapter 1. Yeah. So he said his name is John. Let's go slowly. So that means in verse 59, when they called his name Zechariah, it means that at that point, the prophecy was not fulfilled. So when people say, oh, his name shall be Zechariah, yes, that means at that point, the prophecy was not fulfilled. Although the angel has said that the prophecy shall be fulfilled in the season. Why? Why was the prophecy not fulfilled? It's because the prophecy, right, is a personal prophecy. Personal prophecy is not deterministic, right? Someone must take action, right, for fulfillment. Yeah, somebody must take action. So in this case now, they are asking Zechariah to make a choice. Are you following me now? So they asked Zechariah to make a choice. That is quite interesting. They are asking Zechariah to make a choice. And then what did he choose? He said, his name is John. You get it now? So at the point where the father said his name is John, then at that point, that portion of the prophecy was fulfilled. You get it now? So it was at that point that the portion, okay, of the prophecy about his name, okay, so about the baby's name, that was when it got fulfilled. Can you see now? So the portion of the prophecy about the baby's name, right, got fulfilled. So that means fulfillment in personal prophecy, fulfillment is in human actions. Okay, it's in the actions that people take. So could Zechariah have chosen to say, well, actually, the boy's name is Zechariah? Yes, that prophecy will not have been fulfilled, although a baby will have been born. Let's go on. So the second part of the prophecy, right, that we read, you go back to verse 13 now. Luke 1:13. Look at Luke 1:13. So the second part of the prophecy says, and I read, where it says, but the angel said unto him, fear not, Zacharias, for your prayer is heard, and your wife Elizabeth shall bear thee a son. Right? Your wife Elizabeth shall bear thee a son, and thou shalt call his name John. So we've dealt with thou shalt call his name John. Right? But the other part is your wife Elizabeth shall bear thee a son. Your wife Elizabeth shall bear thee a son. Now, what did the angel then say later? Verse 20b part. It says, my words which shall be fulfilled in their season. So in other words, it will look like, hey, no matter what you do, if you don't take time, you need to be, oh, no matter what you do, your wife is going to get pregnant for you. That was looking like. So no matter what you do, right? Your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son. Is that what he's saying? Actually, we can work it out. Let's go to verse. Let's go back to verse 20. Look at verse 23. Luke 1:23. I read. It says, okay, it says, and I read, and it came to pass that as soon as the days of his ministration were accomplished, he departed to his own house. So what did he do? In Luke and chapter 1, verse 23, he left the temple, okay? Then he departed, follow me closely, he departed to his own house. Okay, so where is he now? He has left the temple. Let's read verse 24. And after those days, after which days? Well, after the days of leaving the temple, okay? So after the day of leaving the temple to go to his house, after those, so it will be after he got home. That's what that means. So after he got home. So in other words, something has happened. It says after those days, look at verse 24. After those days, his wife Elizabeth conceived. Yes, wait. After he got home, right? His wife then conceived. Yeah, his wife conceived. Now, what does that mean? It means that something, okay, happened between husband and wife. Okay, so something happened between husband and wife at their house, okay, that resulted in conception. Do you understand? You know what? They were intimate. Let's say one more time. So let's go on. So that means they were intimate. Okay. So yeah. So they were in their house. Now, So what is the meaning of what it says in verse 20? Verse 20b again. Let's read verse 20b. So in verse 20, want to read verse 20b? 20b says, "My words, which shall be fulfilled in their season." Okay, so the word about your wife will bear you a son. Okay, so the word about, hey, your wife will bear you, okay, a son. How was it fulfilled? Well, how was it fulfilled? That's the key thing I want us to look at. It was fulfilled after those days. I want you to see one more time. So your wife will bear you a son was not fulfilled in the temple. Let me see one more time. So did the angel say, let's go back to verse 13. Luke 1:13. What did the angel say? Well, fear not, Zacharias, for your prayer is heard. Where was the angel? Well, let's go to verse 11. And there appeared unto him an angel of the Lord standing on the right side of the altar. So in Luke and chapter 1 and verse 11. So in Luke chapter 1, verse 11. So angel was in the temple. Follow me closely. And Zechariah, okay, was where? In the temple. And Elizabeth was at home, right? So Elizabeth was at home. Well, did Elizabeth bear a son? No. So angel in the temple, Zechariah in the temple, Elizabeth at home. Elizabeth does not conceive. Yes. So Elizabeth does not conceive. So I need to say that again. Elizabeth does not conceive. Why does Elizabeth not conceive? So one more time. Elizabeth, she doesn't. She does not conceive. Why does she not conceive? Let's put it differently. Why does the prophecy not get fulfilled in the temple? It's because the temple is for service. Yes. So the angel was powerful. Okay. The angel was powerful. God was compassionate. Okay. Elizabeth was righteous. Follow closely. Elizabeth was righteous because we have read that earlier. And also Zechariah was righteous. Zechariah was righteous. So both Elizabeth and Zechariah were righteous. Zechariah was a man given to service. Angel of God was present. Prayer was answered. But for as long as Zechariah was in the temple, his wife will not conceive. Let's put it differently. If Zechariah did not go home, then the prophecy will not be fulfilled in the season. Let me see one more time. So the prophecy will not be fulfilled in its season if Zechariah stays in the temple. Is that clear now? So the prophecy will not be, right? I need to repeat this because it seems so basic, but it's important. If Zechariah remains in the presence where there's power, there's tangibility, right? There's condensation of, tangible power, right? But he stays in that temple. He stays at the altar of incense. He's doing his service of ministry, right? God loves him. Angel is there. People are there. Elizabeth is at home. Elizabeth will not conceive. Why? Zechariah is not where Elizabeth is. Is that clear now? Right? So in other words, if he does not engage his own wife, right, then Elizabeth shall not bear him a son. Yet the angel has said, right, these things shall be fulfilled in their season. So what is in their season? When it says fulfilled in their season. So in their season, right, according to that Luke 1 and 20b, yeah, in their season. Anyway, when was in their season? Yes. When was that? When was in their season? We see it in verse, let's quickly go down. In verse 24. In verse 24, it says, after those days. So in Luke chapter 1, verse 24, it was after those days. Right? So in other words, the days after the temple service, the days after he got home. So it is after he got home. After he got home and he united with his wife. Okay, let me say one more time. So when the angel said, it shall be fulfilled in their season, it meant Zechariah needed to go home. Zechariah needed to get home and be with his wife. Zechariah needed to do with his wife what husband and wives do together, although the prayer was answered. Can you see? So prayer is answered, okay, right? It does not remove, natural steps. Okay, it does not remove natural steps that the actors or the men involved need to take. You get the point now? Yet the prayer was already heard. So the prayer was heard. The angel has said it shall come to pass. It shall come to pass in a season. What will that season include? Zechariah, right, will complete his priestly service. Then he will go home. Then he will stay with his wife, be with his wife. Then she will conceive. Let me say it again. Elizabeth, I need to tell you one more time. What I'm trying to say is this. Elizabeth did not conceive because the angel said, your prayer is heard. One more time. So Elizabeth did not conceive, right, because of the angel's words, right? Rather, the angel's words caused Zechariah to now act different. Yes, the angel's word caused Zechariah to act different, go to his wife, and now there was a conception. The words of the angel did not impregnate her, right? So the angel's word caused Zechariah to engage his wife differently. Now, let me say that one more time, because this Elizabeth did not conceive while Zechariah was in the temple. If that happened, then Zechariah, of course, will know that, hey, that's not my child. Do you understand? But look at what the I want you to see things that are implied when prophecies are given. Right? So look at Luke 11 and verse 13 again. It says, and I read, but the angel said unto him, fear not, Zacharias, for your prayer is heard, and your wife Elizabeth shall bear thee a son. You see now? Shall bear thee. So it was going to be Zechariah's son. That means Zechariah will get his wife pregnant. Well, that cannot happen, okay, while he is in the temple. That cannot happen. So the angel can say all the angel wants. Yeah, there are actions, activities that people take in the light of the words spoken in prophecy that then causes or triggers a performance. So, in other words, let's do it differently. What since we are told is after those days, Luke 1:24. Let's read. It says after those days. That means after he got home. Yes. Now, so that after he got home, right? It was when it happened. So that means if Zacharias had jumped, okay, from the from the mezzanine floor or something in the temple, if Zacharias had gone to the top of the temple and jumped down head first, then he would have died. Then you know what would have happened? Then that Luke 120, when it says, let's read Luke 120b again. Let's read Luke 120b. Look at what it says. So that Luke 120b, I wanted to see the implication of the words of prophecy. Luke 120b. It says, because you believe not my word, which shall be fulfilled in their season. And we're now seeing that the fulfillment in their season, right? The fulfillment in their season has a lot to do with actions taken by men. Fulfillment in their season. So what does that tell us? Personal prophecy. This is personal prophecy. It's a prophecy involving Zechariah and Zechariah's wife. Personal prophecy is not deterministic, right? One, the fulfillment of personal prophecy is not automatic. Yes, again, there are conditions. There are conditions that are implied. So there are conditions that are implied that should not be violated, because violating those conditions prevents fulfillment. It's not that God will say, oh, you've not done what you should do. It's simply that Zechariah cannot have a child that Elizabeth gave birth to if Zechariah didn't get Elizabeth pregnant. It would just not be Zechariah's child. Look, you somebody could even say, could there not be a miraculous conception? Yes, but it will not be Zechariah's child. So can what happened to Mary, right, happen to Elizabeth? Let's even say that happened. So even if that happened, that is not what the prophecy said. That is not the prophecy. The prophecy said your wife will bear thee, it will bear you a son. So that means Zechariah will have to be the father of the child. He will have to be the one that supplied the male components that caused Elizabeth's conception. So the prophecy implies that Zechariah must supply the male components. So the prophecy implies that. Now, this is very important, because, so in other words, what are we saying then? We have seen by examining the text, right, that when the angel said, "This shall be fulfilled in their season," if Zechariah took that to mean, you know what, I'm going on a holiday cruise and let Elizabeth be at home. I am going to Honolulu, or I'm going to New Zealand, or whatever the case was. Not that there was New Zealand then anyway, but I'm going to New Zealand. Since the angel has said it will come to pass in a season, then it will come to pass in a season. The funny thing is, it's true. It will come to pass in a season. What is the season? The season when Zechariah goes home and is with his wife, and he stays with his wife, and they get together as man and wife. Then she will conceive. So Zechariah's supply is male factors. Yeah. So he has supplies male factors. Now, so when it says it shall be fulfilled in their season, yeah. So how does a pregnancy get fulfilled? A man gets with a woman, and when they get together, then the conception happens. Right? Otherwise, the man is not the father of that child. Yeah. Now, so in other words, fulfilling their season still means, right, that men must do their part. Yeah. So men must take the actions. Right. Okay. Let's go further. So I spent a while there for a reason. Right. It's to show us the nature of personal prophecy. That's the nature of personal prophecy. All personal prophecies are like that. You know, we're saying on Sunday that you have unconditional prophecies and you have conditional prophecies. Well, personal prophecies are conditional. Yeah, whether the condition is stated or not. Although, of course, if a person listens carefully, right, the conditions are often already embedded or implicit in the word spoken. If it's not too obvious, right, hang around the brethren, fellowship with it, it will become obvious. Now, the case is, Zechariah was told, right, that, oh, your wife shall bear thee a son. So if that wife is at home, then he must go home, right? And if it is wife, then he must be a husband to the wife. Did you get it now? So it said his wife, then he must be her husband. Now, let's do it differently. So, what if he goes home and he is just negative towards her, and then she now doesn't want to be with him? Will she get pregnant? No, she wouldn't. Why would she get pregnant? Because he is not being a wife to his husband. Sorry, he's not being a husband to his wife. See, he's thy wife. So that means he must be her husband. All of that is embedded in that prophecy. You know. So anyway, so let's go on. Look at Matthew and chapter 2. Matthew, and we're in chapter 2. Matthew chapter 2. Let's go. It says, I'm going to go to, this is the story of the wise men. I started treating it on Sunday. I'm back to it again this on Thursday. So Matthew chapter 2 and verse 4. It says, or let's read from verse 3. Matthew chapter 2 from verse 3, so that we know it's about Herod. So it says here, when Herod the king heard these things, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. So it's about Herod. So we are reading about Herod. Yeah, it's about Herod. So I mean, I want us to read that so it doesn't then look magical when we begin to refer to Herod afterwards. Look at verse 4. He said, and when he, who is the he, Herod, had gathered all the chief priests and the scribes of the people, he demanded of them where Christ should be born. Verse 5. And they said to him, in Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written by the prophet. Yeah, verse 6. And thou, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, art not the least among the princes of Judah? For out of thee shall come a governor, and that shall rule my people Israel. Okay, so what has Herod heard? Herod has heard a prophecy about Bethlehem, okay, being where Christ, okay, will be born, the Messiah. Okay, so he had heard a prophecy about where about Bethlehem being the place where Christ should be born. He knows that for sure now. He asked. Okay, now who inspired that prophecy? God did. Is that clear? God did. So God inspired that prophecy. It was spoken, right, by the prophet of God. So under divine inspiration. That's quite interesting. Yeah, where Christ should be born. God inspired that. Now, let's go back to verse 3. What kind of man was Herod who has now heard the prophecy? Yes, so one more time. Herod, there is a prophecy. The prophecy was long ago. Herod has heard it. What kind of man is Herod? Is the big question. Look at verse 3. It says, and I read, and when Herod the king had heard these things, he was troubled. Yeah, he was what? Troubled. So Herod is hearing or has heard about the birth of the Messiah, and he is troubled. He's agitated. Yes, the content of his heart is in chaos. Yes, so the content of his heart is in chaos, is in turmoil. That's what I want to see. So the content of Herod's heart is in chaos or turmoil, upheaval, whatever you want to do for it. Now the thing is, what was inside Herod's heart? What was in Herod's heart? Well, look at verse 13. The same Matthew 2. And when they were departed, right, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared unto Joseph in a dream, saying, okay, I'm sorry. Look at verse 16. 16. I meant to say 16. Yeah. Oh, well, just a minute. 13. 13. And when they were departed, we're trying to find when it says Herod was troubled, what was troubling him? Yeah. So Matthew 2:13. And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, arise, take the young child and his mother, flee to Egypt. Be thou there until I bring thee word. Now listen, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. So what was in Herod's heart? Herod will seek to destroy the child. Is that clear? Herod will seek to destroy the child. So what kind of person is Herod? I want you to see how prophecy gets to come to pass. What kind of person is Herod? We've seen one is troubled. That being troubled is explained as he will seek to destroy another human being, the child. So he will seek to destroy the Messiah as a child. Okay? So he will seek to destroy the Messiah while the Messiah, okay, is a child. That's the key thing I want you to see. While the Messiah is a child. Look at verse 16. 16. Then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceeding wroth, and sent forth and slew. So what was in Herod's heart? He was very angry. So he was a man whose heart was a temple of anger. He was a man whose heart was quick to seek to destroy another. He was troubled. So that is what was troubling him. So what did he now do? It says in verse 16, he was exceeding wroth, and he sent forth and slew. So in Matthew and chapter 2 and verse 16, what did he do? Herod acted, right, to kill children is the point. He acted now to kill children. He knows he's searching for one child, but there's so much venom, so much anger, so much trouble, chaos in his heart, so much instability, right? Now, so he slew all the children that were in Bethlehem. Why did he go for Bethlehem? Because he remembered the prophecy. Yes, so he went for Bethlehem, right? Remember, he went for Bethlehem because of the prophecy, right, that he heard. So in other words, Herod's response, okay, to prophecy was to be evil. Why? Because his heart was troubled. So he acted out the tension, right, in his heart. That's what he did. He acted the tension in his heart. Anyway, let's go on. So I'm going to skip into verse 17. Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremy the prophet. Then. So Matthew 2:17. It says then, right? Then what? Then when Herod had acted out of anger. You see now? So when Herod had acted, out of anger, okay, so out of his anger, to kill children, then that's the then. So if Herod had not acted out of anger, then there will be no fulfillment of any prophecy. Are you following now? So if Herod had not acted out of anger, if he had not killed any children, right? So one more time, if Herod had not, this is important, if he had not acted out of anger, right? So then what will happen? He won't kill children. What will then happen? No prophecy, right, is fulfilled. You see? So that prophecy of Matthew 2 and verse 17 then was fulfilled, that which was spoken by Jeremiah the prophet, saying. So that prophecy, no prophecy of or we can say the prophecy of Matthew 2:17. Yes. So one more time. So the prophecy of Matthew 2:17 will not be fulfilled. Yeah. So Matthew 2:17 is not deterministic. Rather, it is men that act to set some things in motion. Yes. So Herod's action, what did he do? He set the fulfillment, okay, in motion. It wasn't God's action, it was Herod's action. Now, so I want you to see that very carefully. Now, so children then died. Children died. So somebody says, well, does that mean that God wanted the deaths of those children? Yeah. Did he want the death of them? That's quite a big question. Did he determine, okay? Did he determine the death of those children? Well, we can answer the question by looking at one of the children that was in Bethlehem. Can you see? So let's look at a child in Bethlehem. Yeah, let's look at a child in Bethlehem. This is quite important. So this prophecy is not for the whole world. This prophecy is about something in Bethlehem. But what happened in Bethlehem was because a man has acted. And if the man had not acted like he acted, then that prophecy will not come to pass. In other words, God did not want that prophecy to come to pass. Can a man fulfill a prophecy that God does not want to come to pass? Yes. The man is acting from a heart that is filled with venom, with vices. The fruit of the spirits are lacking, right? As in the case of Herod. Now, remember, there was one prophecy. That prophecy is in that Matthew 2 in verse 18. In Ramah, there was a voice heard, lamentation and weeping, great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, and will not be comforted because they are not. Yes, so there was one prophecy. That prophecy doesn't sound good, really. So it's one prophecy of mourning. Yeah, one prophecy of mourning. So Rachel weeping for her children. Yeah, a great mourning. So it already implies death. Yes, it implies death. Rachel weeping for her children. Now, but did every child in Bethlehem die? Hey, observe closely. Look, let's go back to verse 14. Yeah, or verse 13. And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared unto Joseph in a dream, saying, Rise, take the young child and his mother, and flee to Egypt. So Matthew and chapter 2 and verse 13, the angel of the Lord. You know, we read about angel that came to Zechariah. So this is like angel that came to Zechariah too. Yeah. So we read about Zechariah in Luke chapter 1. Now we are reading about angel of the Lord came to Joseph, right? Saying, Arise, take the young child and the mother, flee into Egypt. Be thou there until I bring you word. For Herod will seek the young child to destroy. So why is the angel telling Joseph to run? Because of Herod's heart. So the angel's instruction, okay, are the way that God is helping Joseph, right, react to Herod's venom. Okay, so Herod has venom, right, and God is helping Joseph to sidestep the venom of Herod. That's the only reason for this flee. Now, look at it again. So in Matthew chapter 2 and verse 14, look at verse 14. When he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night and departed into Egypt. Can you see? So he departed where? Into Egypt. He departed into Egypt. So what then happened? So Joseph has left. Yeah, Joseph has left Bethlehem. That's the point. Joseph has left Bethlehem, and then Herod is coming, right, to Bethlehem, or that means through his soldiers. So we can say Herod's army or Herod's soldiers. Okay, so Herod's army of death, they are coming to Bethlehem. But by the time they get there, Joseph has already fled. So what is going on? That means Joseph's action is preventing him from personally fulfilling Jeremiah's prophecy. You get it now? So Jeremiah's prophecy is not written in the stars, right? There will be the actions and activity of men. There will be a bad man like Herod. Well, so is God responsible for the way that Herod is? No. But God has helped Herod to hear good news. But Herod is obstinate, is hard-hearted, is angry, right? So Joseph's action will prevent him, right, from receiving, right, the personal fulfillment of Joseph's prophecy. In other words, what does that mean? It means that Jeremiah, right, Jeremiah's prophecy of death, okay? So Jeremiah's prophecy of the death of children, right, of the murder of children, let's put it better. So Jeremiah's prophecy of the murder, right, of children was not destined by God for any particular person, right? Now, you know what is interesting? What is interesting is, since the angel came to Joseph, right, by night, what would likely happen? Yeah, angel came to Joseph by night. Do you remember during the birth of Jesus? During the birth of Jesus, angel appeared to many shepherds at once. Yeah, so angel appeared, right, to many shepherds all at once, telling all of them to go to a particular place. Yes, I want to see one more time. So angel appeared to many shepherds at once. I want you to listen very carefully. Yes, so the angel appeared to the shepherds at once. Right now, that is quite interesting, because that is in Luke and chapter 2. I want you to see it very quickly as I stop tonight. Look at Luke chapter 2, and we're going to go to verse. Look at Luke chapter 2 as I stop tonight. Luke chapter 2, and look at verse 8. Luke chapter 2 and verse 8. Let's see what it says. And there were in the same country shepherds, that's a plural, right? So there are shepherds, so there's many of them, okay? So shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. And lo, the angel of the Lord. Can you see? So we now see in verse 9, in Luke chapter 2, verse 9, the same, the angel of the Lord. So now the angel of the Lord, what did he do? Came upon them. Can you see? So the angel of the Lord, he came upon them. Yes, plural. He came upon them, and they were so afraid. And the angel said unto them, fear not, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy. I'm coming. Look at verse 15. Yeah, verse 15. And it came to pass, as the angels were gone away from them into heaven, the shepherds said one to another, let us now go even to Bethlehem, see this thing which is come to pass, which the Lord has made known to us. So in Luke 2:15, right? So in Luke chapter 2 verse 15, the shepherds, right, they knew that the Lord, okay, revealed, right, things to them. How? By the angel, right, of the Lord. So then what did they do? Look at this very carefully. Yeah, in verse 16. And they came with haste and found Mary and Joseph and the baby in the manger. So it was the shepherds that found Jesus in the manger. But I want you to see that verse 16. And they came with haste. So in Luke chapter 2, verse 16, they came with haste. So what can we then say? What we can then say is, right, that if you go back to Matthew chapter 2, right, Matthew chapter 2, quickly, Matthew 2, and we get to verse 13, where it says, and when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in the dream, saying, rise, take the young child and his mother, flee into Egypt, and be thou there until I bring thee word, for Aaron will seek the young child to destroy him. 14, when he arose, he took the young child. Now, so what we can learn from the Bible is that the angel will show up to as many people as have children, right, that are 2 years, from 0 to 2 years. Now, in fact, you know what, scholars have done some census or some calculations. It's been estimated that there will be, right, given the population of Israel, population of the world at that time, that there will be about 20 children that fit that criteria. Yeah, their calculation is going to be not more than not up to 25, but let's say 20. So it will not be difficult for an angel to appear to 20 parents in the night to tell the 20 parents flee. Yeah. So the 20 parents, right, would have been told also to flee. Now, again, it will now depend on people to say, that was a nightmare. I'm going nowhere. That will depend on people. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not. So now, in other words, there will be an interplay of Herod, interplay of parents, right? An interplay of soldiers that are carrying out things in a frenzy, political soldiers, right? In order for the babies to die. Yeah. So in order for, right, what was said by Jeremiah to come to pass. Can you see? So Jeremiah's fulfillment of Jeremiah's prophecy depended upon the activity of a number of people. But guys, it's been a pleasure to bring to you the word of God tonight. We'll continue on Sunday. Now, don't forget, find somebody, sit down with somebody, go over the territory that we covered tonight. Right? Don't forget that together, you and